Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present on the topic from patriotism to protest, the evolution of war poetry from World War One to World War Two and its echoes today. Today I will explore the transformation of war poetry from patriotic glorification in World War One to disillusioned protest in World War Two and beyond. We will examine key poets and poems from poems that reflect this shift and analyze their continuous impact on contemporary war narrative. Throughout this presentation, I will integrate historical context, literary analysis, and real poetic line to show how war poetry serve as the powerful medium of truth and resistance. Here is a table of content. And my research question is how does the evolution of war poetry from World War One to modern conflict reflects changing attitude towards war and what role does poetry play in shaping historical memory and public reception of war? And my hypothesis is as war poetry evolved from a patriotic glorification in World War One to protest in World War Two and psychological reflection in modern conflict. It has a significant influence how war is remembered and understood by exposing the horror of war and its human cost. War poetry challenge official narratives and serve as a powerful tool for historical reflection and critique. Introduction: the shift in war poetry. At the beginning of World War One, many poets, especially those with no direct combat experience, wrote poetry that celebrate war as a uh, noble and heroic. However, as a soldier began witnessing the horror of the battlefield, these patriotic optimism faded. Poets such as poets such as Wilfrid's On and Sassoon rejected earlier glorifications and instead exposing the reality of war. By World War II, poetry was no longer just as a tool for recruitment or national pride. It was become a medium of disillusionment, political critique, and personal trauma. In this presentation, we will trace this transformation and examine how war poetry continues to resonate in today's world. This is a chart that how poet wrote about which theme he wrote about. Patriotic war poetry, World War One. At the outbreak of World War One, poetry played a crucial role in shaping public sentiment about war. Many poets, often writing from a distance, portrayed war as a noble and heroic endeavor. Rupert Brooke, the soldier, optimized this view, idealizing death in battles as a form of patriotic immorality. Similarly, Gibson's The Fear echoes the early belief that dying for one's country was a glorious duty. However, as the soldier experienced the true horror of the trenches, this patriotic enthusiasm gives way to disillusionment, a shift we reality of war protest poetry in World War One. As the war dragged on poets who had experienced the front lines began to write in a stark contrast. The early patriotic poetry. Once a poem duels at decorum, it calls out the old lie that war is glorious, describing the reality of a gas attack. Sassoon's the hero mocks the false narratives told to grieving families, exposing the hypocrisy of military propaganda. Similarly, in Ivor, the target present the moral anguish of killing in war, showing how soldiers were forced into impossible choices. These poets transform war poetry into a form of protest, challenging the myth of horror and sacrifice. World War II further disillusionment. By World War II, poetry had moved beyond more protest to deeply cynical and personal reflection on war. Unlike World War One poets who mainly focus on trench welfare horrors, World War II poets expand their critique to include political propagandas and psychological trauma. Douglas, in his poem, humanized an enemy soldier, questioning the morality of war. Reads Reid's naming of parts incorrectly contrasts military deals with the natural world, revealing war's absurdity. Churel's The Death of the Bell Torrent Turner is one of the most chilling suspicious of war's brutality, reducing the soldier life to a mechanical process. These poets highlight how World War II reinforced war futility and human cost. Echoes today war poetry in modern conflict through the battlefield has changed. War poetry remains as relevant as ever in today's conflict. Poets explore the themes of PTSD, means traumatic stress disorder, warfare, and the role of media in shaping public perception. Brain Turner writes poem first-hand experience, confronting the raw brutality of modern combat in Here Bullet. Simon Armitage, in his poem Remains, dwell into the psychological scare left on soldiers long after they return home. Duffy's last post reflect on the futility of war, linking past and present. Modern war poetry continues the tradition of ensuring that his horrors are not forgotten. Conclusion. Throughout the history, war poetry has been a crucial means of recording and questioning war. From Rupert Brooke's patriotic idealism to Owen's bitter protest, from Douglas' detached cynicism to Turner's modern reflection on PTSD, war poetry has continuously evaluated. It does not more than describe better. It is tell the personal, emotional, and psychological truth that history books often overlook. This is a reference.
So, Rutvi, my question is, do you think war poetry is more effective than journalism in conveying the reality of war?
Both are important, but in journalism, they provide fact and where the event happened and how happened. But in poetry, poet reflect the how soldier feel the pain and emotion. The both are necessary, but they represent different way. That one is journalism represent fact, while poetry reflect the fear and emotion how soldier felt during the war and after. Thank you. This is from my side.
My question is, if a new major war occurred, do you think patriotic war poetry would return or would protest poetry dominate?
It depends on war and how people feel about it. If write about war, if war is necessary, then poet may glorify the war. But in modern era, we know that how war is horror, and so poet may write about horror of war, not write about may not glorify the war.